Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Good Boxing Podcast with your host, Josh Size. Today I have a nice and short episode for you. I just wanted to touch on something I came across yesterday surfing the web and kind of being on Instagram and Twitter, kind of see what's going on in the boxing world. Evidently, Devin Haney released a tweet saying, "Where the F is Lomachenko?" Right? All of a sudden, Lomachenko, who's been kind of MIA in my opinion, the only kind of videos he's been putting out is promoting his Loma US official brand, which is something I respect because as a fighter, you have to promote your brand and look, you have to generate as many income streams as possible. But other than that, he's also been talking about how he didn't lose that fight with Teofimo Lopez. He keeps releasing those slow motion videos where he's like, oh, where did Teofimo hit me? Blah, 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 blah. We know that already. We know the excuses. I've touched on this before. If you want, check out that excuses episode I released where I go in depth as to Lomachenko and the whole excuses saga. But Lomachenko being, I guess he felt a little froggy. He kind of feels like he slided, and clearly he's very, very annoyed and looking to kind of penetrate himself back into the limelight and amongst the top contenders in the 135-pound division goes, hey, I'm here. I'm ready for a real fight, not a Twitter fight. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but yeah. So that caused some controversy. People are trying to say, oh, why don't you fight Lomachenko? Now the pressure is seemingly on Devin Haney, where Lomachenko is calling him out, and people are actually running with this and saying, oh, Devin Haney doesn't want to fight Lomachenko, and Loma would beat Devin Haney, etc., etc. And it's kind of fitting because he was kind of trying to put the pressure on Teofimo. He was putting the pressure on Tank and Ryan Garcia and a bunch of other people talking about how, oh, you guys don't want to fight me, you don't want to fight me. And this is actually the first kind of person that is putting their foot on the neck of Devin Haney and basically calling him out. I'm kind of surprised because if you don't know, there's a long history between Loma and Devin Haney. Devin Haney, upon climbing up the 135-pound rankings for the WBC, was Lomachenko's mandatory, right? And this was before he was given the designation of franchise champion. Devin Haney was knocking on the door, and when he was a rising contender, really wasn't a big name and was looking for his first fight to really show his skills and be at the world level. Lomachenko didn't want to fight him. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Lomachenko's afraid of Devin Haney because Devin Haney, again, wasn't really a big name. It really didn't make sense in Lomachenko's career because he did move up to 135, where he is not the biggest 135-pounder. He is certainly one of the top rated and best 135 pounders, but he's not the true comfortable 135 pounds that the other guys are. Devin Haney kept putting his foot on the neck, and then eventually he actually received the WBC title that he has currently today because Lomachenko vacated the WBC regular championship and basically had to allow Devin Haney to fight for that championship. That's why Devin Haney, Teofimo, everyone keeps talking about the email world championship. It's because, truthfully, Lomachenko got the franchise designation. It allowed him to go fight other people, unify, and become the eventual undisputed champion, which is what they thought would happen. He was trying to follow that undisputed narrative, and I respect that. But now the tides have turned. You know what happened? Teofimo Lopez dethroned the king of the pound-for-pound list, and he became undisputed champion. Lomachenko didn't have the rematch clause, and now their whole plan and their whole, I guess, MO or modus operandi is to kind of get back into the limelight and potentially fix what was wrong. I like this from Lomachenko because when he lost to Salido, he never really gave Salido a chance, or he never got that loss back. Salido beat him early in his career, and then they felt like he was beyond it and didn't want to go back. But clearly, what happened with Teofimo, what happened with him getting clowned and everyone talking about how, oh, he was overrated, clearly Lomachenko feels slighted and he wants to correct that. And it's not very like Lomachenko to talk a lot of trash. He clearly isn't comfortable talking trash, and that's not really his style. But since Teofimo, he's been talking trash about Teofimo, and now he attacked Devin Haney, who was like, hey, where the F is Loma? Sure, it was I'm not going to sit here and say it wasn't a cheap shot, But now with Lomachenko kind of responding, people are putting the pressure on Devin Haney to fight him. Because look, Teofimo and Gumboso sets a fight. People were talking about Devin Haney and Teofimo for the real undisputed champion. Look, Mauricio Suleiman, WBC, they already cleared all that up. So Teofimo's the regular champion. He's the super champion. Whatever champion you could be for the WBC, he is that. So now he has to move on, and they were talking about him maybe fighting Linares or someone of that nature to kind of build it back, maybe Fortuna. But evidently Ryan Garcia is in talks with Javier Fortuna, who's, I guess, his second mandatory, because you have Devin Haney, who's the regular champion. You have Ryan Garcia, who is under him, the silver champion. And then you have the, I guess, number one, like, interim champion, who is Javier Fortuna, based on rankings. So Ryan Garcia evidently is going to fight Javier Fortuna, according to rumors, and now Devin Haney is left to fight Linares. But it would be interesting because Devin Haney doesn't have to fight Linares. He can actually take the fight. And Lomachenko's smart because now he's not only going after Teofimo. It doesn't look like he's a jaded ex who lost something in a custody battle or of that nature, or a disgruntled wife who's upset, or a disgruntled husband who's upset at a bad divorce. It is injecting him into the limelight. People are talking about it, and I kind of like it, honestly. But I do want to give you the context. It's kind of hard when it's kind of funny and that when you're at the top, which Lomachenko was, he didn't even give Devin Haney the time of day. Devin Haney was his mandatory, and he just basically was like, oh, you're not on my level. I'm not even going to fight you. And then the WBC ended up having to give him the franchise championship so he doesn't have to fight him, right? Now Devin Haney has a belt. He's actually the mandatory for Teofimo for the WBC if that were to get called, right? But you don't really have to heed the warning of the WBC if you're the franchise champion, especially if you're going around and trying to unify and you have a bunch of belts and you are the face of the organization. It looks great when the undisputed champion Teofimo Lopez has that WBC belt. So I don't think they'll force it, but it certainly makes the fight bigger. Lomachenko and Devin Haney for the WBC regular belt, where basically the person who wins that fight is the next one up for Teofimo. You could say whatever about Tank and you could say whatever about whoever, but Tank really hasn't fought at 135. And look, he's not a true 135. He's not a solidified 135-pound contender. He hasn't really fought up there. I mean, he fought Santa Cruz at 130, and Santa Cruz came up from 122. So he's not that. But he's certainly a top contender, and I don't want to disrespect him. Ryan Garcia is still a notch between the other two. He's a notch down between Lomachenko, Devin Haney, and Teofimo in terms of esteem, in terms of ranking. But in terms of popularity, you have to give him credit. He is the most popular out of all of them. But I think it's good for Lomachenko to kind of build a narrative. His fans really are loyal. I mean, certain people feel like Lomachenko won that fight. You got to rewatch it, and you'll see the truth. He didn't win that fight. But it's good to see Loma trying to get into the mix. The only tricky part is Devin Haney is promoted by himself / Matchroom. He fights on DAZN. Bob Arum promotes Lomachenko. And that's where that gets a little tricky because Lomachenko is under that top-ranked ESPN banner. Bob Arum hasn't really shown a propensity to really want to work with other people, and he hasn't shown a likeness to really pay the fighters what they want to get paid. Devin Haney is going to want to get substantially compensated for fighting Lomachenko. He's not going to be cool with taking $1 million. He makes more than that now fighting guys that, look, let's be honest, Gamboa isn't Lomachenko. He's not Teofimo. He's not Ryan. He's not even Gervonta Davis. In my opinion, Gamboa wasn't even Linares level in terms of quality, but he does make more money than Lomachenko makes in terms of his fights. So it should be interesting. I'm not going to sit here and say cap. Cap means lies. I think Lomachenko's speaking because I do think that Lomachenko doesn't really care that much about the money in terms of that. He does want to be great, or he wouldn't be trying to do all of these great things. And I think he could put pressure on Bob Arum to make the fight, but I just don't see Bob Arum just letting Lomachenko fight Eddie Hearn's Devin Haney. And especially after the whole purse bid thing, he's upset at Matchroom. They're trying to create this whole mega fight with Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. Bob Arum doesn't like to collaborate, and he wants all the money in-house. So I think that's why Loma will probably end up fighting Masayoshi Nakatani versus Devin Haney. But it's cool to talk about, because you can't say that, oh, Devin Haney's afraid to fight you when he was your number one mandatory. You didn't want to fight him because you were looking to unify. So was he scared to fight you back then? Or is he scared to fight you right now? I don't think so. So in my opinion, I feel like he just wants to kind of generate some buzz and get his name back into the mix, where everyone seems to be calling everyone out. Everyone's calling Teofimo out. Everyone's calling the top dog out. And at the time, everyone was calling Loma out, and he had his time. But you can't sit here and say that Devin Haney's afraid to fight anyone at this point. He hasn't fought anyone of substance yet, and I do say that. But his dad has a plan. Eddie Hearn has a plan. He's his own promoter, right? So he's going to develop himself the way he wants. And Devin Haney, in my opinion, is a nightmare matchup for Lomachenko. I like Lomachenko. I think he's a good fighter. I think Devin Haney does need a couple more fights to really, really dominate. But I think in a fight right now, Devin Haney really has nothing to worry about in terms of Lomachenko. The blueprint's out there, and Devin Haney has very, very good coaches, very good, well-seasoned schooling, and I do think he can beat Lomachenko. So he's not afraid. I think Lomachenko, I also agree with him. He should talk his shit. He should try to get himself back in the mix, because the other, oh, I don't talk, I don't do this, was kind of lame, and it didn't really sell fights. When you were killing and you were unbeatable and you were the Matrix and you were all these things, you could kind of sell fights based off your skills alone. But these young guys, they're going to come at you. And if you want to get back into the limelight, you want people talking about you again, you want people to be like, oh, I want to see him fight Teofimo. Why not fight some of the best top 5 135 pounders? Go beat Devin Haney. So he can say, hey, I beat Devin Haney, I want to fight you now. And then the fight becomes bigger. Go fight Ryan Garcia. Go fight these guys that are at the top of the 135-pound division. So I'm just going to summarize this. Devin Haney did want to fight Lomachenko. Lomachenko didn't want to fight him, but it didn't make sense. And at the time, I get it, because Loma was the pound-for-pound king. Devin Haney was an unknown, really, really skillful boxer who just happened to work with Floyd Mayweather in the gym. He wasn't really a big name, wasn't that big. He's developed, he's gone bigger, he has his title now. Lomachenko fell from grace, and then now he wants to fight him. I don't think Devin Haney is afraid of Lomachenko, and I just don't think the fight will be made because of compensation, etc. But I do want to see the fight, and I do think Devin Haney can beat Lomachenko. I'm not sitting here saying that it's a done deal, but I think Lomachenko could beat Devin Haney. It's a very competitive fight, and it's a fight that we should see. But I think top-ranked Bob Arum, they know they want to rebuild their asset in Vasily Lomachenko. I'm surprised they didn't have a rematch clause built in for the fight with Teofimo Lopez. And now, hopefully, Lomachenko proceeds with caution the next time he tries to unify or wins a belt. You have to have that rematch clause, because anything can happen any given day, the pandemic, etc. So this is the episode for today. Don't believe the hype. Devin Haney is not afraid to fight Lomachenko. He's probably going to end up fighting Linares. But if the fight does happen, I'm all for it. This has been the episode. Feel free to support the podcast on Instagram at Good Boxing Podcast. I've been putting the episodes on IGTV if you just want to kind of directly listen to them or listen to snippets, just so you can know which episodes to go visit on the Captivate podcast link on my page. Thank you so much for all the support, and my mic's coming soon. I'm so hyped, and the quality is just going to be so much better. Be well. Have a good day.